Hi, I'm Jazz, and I'm an alcoholic and I'm codependent. I work a 12-step program and I seek help. I am a seeker and a traveler in my journey. I have had the privilege to have had the ear and the wisdom from some very special and important ladies in my life. And there are these, you're supposed to get a sponsor in recovery. And when I first started my journey, I decided I was going to do all the things that it would take to have recovery. And having a sponsor was one of those things, those requirements, strong suggestions that they say. And since I was committed and decided and believe that I am, an alcoholic and codependent and have this issue that I need to resolve, I was okay with getting a sponsor. And I believe I have not had to be convinced that was something that I needed. I believed that pretty easily in the beginning. And it's probably easier for me to believe that because I've had so much therapy in my life, and I've been going to counseling and therapy since I was 5 years old. So I've known that having a strong figure to ask for help from has, it is of value, is of benefit to me. And it does help me also to not feel so alone through things, and so it was just sort of it wasn't too far-fetched for me to go from like counselor therapy to finding a sponsor and getting a sponsorship in my life and for my program. So I got a sponsor right away. And, I think that all the sponsors that I have had have helped me through certain parts of my life in those times because of the needs that I had at those times. I've learned that my needs change, and I've gotten better at adapting to those needs and being okay with how things are changing and stuff. And I needed help with that even. But sponsorship is really important to me because it really has helped me rewire my brain and helped me to see the things that I don't see. And what's really important to me is not what I know, but really what I don't know and what I don't see, and how I can get myself to believing and seeing what those truths are. And that sponsorship is like an outside source, a different lens, a different perspective. And they are way smarter than me on certain things. And to me, that's just another form of a higher power. And my higher power speaks through people to me, and it speaks to me through, literature and meetings and happenings in the world in my day. And, but to help me figure out my own truth and what's good for me, I've really needed that extra help of a sponsor. And, I've had different sponsors over the years, and it's really scary to get a sponsor when I don't know if it's a good fit yet. And in the early days, I would jump right in with high expectations because in my journey, I've had a big issue with expectations and high standards and going too hard at things and strong self-will. And so I had that's one of my character defects. And so I've jumped into things really quickly and strongly. And with my sponsorship in the early days, I jumped in, and what was harder was the breaking up. And, now I would suggest, like, if I could recommend something to myself back then, the best thing is just go for a coffee. Like, instead of, hey, will you be my sponsor and be this person that's going to fix my life and give me all the perfect answers, I now move a lot slower to people in most situations. And with sponsorship, it does feel like it's a bit of dating at the beginning. And, I find just planning a small hangout a few times before really committing to that, that's worked out a lot better for me, because then I avoid the big breakup thing. And, I was having so many of these relationship breakups in my life, and I came to terms with that. I really don't like that. I really hate that part of, like, why am I getting into these if it's just not going to work out? And so I just find that going a lot slower and starting slow and small is the recipe for me. But I'm also okay that, I think my sponsors are just going to change throughout my life. And they have. And even the sponsor that I have right now, who's very dear to me, it might not be forever, but it might be forever, but I'm really open to the fact that it might not be. So I'm not really locking in and tying myself down to these constraints or these visions, and I'm not so rigid on the frame. And I'm a little bit more easygoing with the situation and myself. So in some form, it could also mean that I just allow the fact that there's an out. And I find I progress a lot better when I know there's a bit of an out. And not that I plan that way, but I think it's just that I let myself off the hook a lot more with things, and instead of having to shoot for a perfect picture and a perfect plan. It's just going to be the way it's going to be. And, with sponsorship, I would not be at the level of health or mental correction that I am at today, with all of the wisdom and things that these women have shared to me over the years about their own struggles, or just about what they're hearing and seeing in my story and in my daily struggles, having a sounding board, having that person in my corner, having somebody rooting for me, having someone just listen to me, and having someone there to help me listen to me. And, the trickiest thing has been learning how to listen to me, and learning and undoing why my brain is wired a certain way. And it takes so much effort and awareness and paying attention to the details of my thinking and unraveling all of those little dysfunctional connections that I've been living with my entire life that are just eroded in my brain. And, I was going really fast at the beginning. Like, I was in such a hurry because I felt so shameful about my life. And, I've really learned to slow down and what's the rush. And I do live in the day more. And it's just okay that if something isn't corrected right now, right away. Or, I'm just taking it as it comes. And yeah, I'm just in a constant state of, openness and willingness to repair and change for the better. Like, I am okay when something happens that isn't okay with me, and it doesn't overtake my day and overwhelm me for too long. It doesn't overtake my day. But when these things come, and I talk to my sponsor, that's like my safety net. I can get the truth from that person if I don't even know the truth in myself. And that's been very beneficial to helping me stay on track. And so I'm only hurting myself by not getting on the phone. And I'm only hindering my own recovery when I don't reach out for help. And when I'm reaching out for help, I just find I stay up, I stay even, I stay in control of myself, I understand myself, and that is a very important tool. When I only rely on me and my own thinking, when I only rely on me and my own thinking, like I have developed some trust in myself where sometimes I do have to do that. But if I say I was a person that was only doing that and not reaching out, I will always believe my own excuses and my own messed up thinking. And the thing is with my thinking can get really distorted and get off the mark, and it can get emotional, and I can get off the path so easily and think I'm on the path. That's the thing. So it keeps my blindness in check. So I'm not often as blind because I'm often seeing. And when I'm often seeing, I can receive the information, the communications that are happening, and then I can act appropriately. And I think that that's really living in honesty with myself. And the more honest I find when I am with myself, my peace is there, my strength is there. The ripple effect of living in that honesty, it is giving me the life I'm supposed to be living. And it's taken so much practice to learn how to become honest. And it's taken that help of that sponsor in those dark times, even in just the minor frustrations of the day. Doesn't matter how big or small, I will talk to someone if I need to. And I don't go for too long. I don't go weeks without talking to anyone. I probably talk to my sponsor twice a week, maybe once a week right now. But there's times I call them every day or twice a day if I have to, depending on, what my life demands of me. And that's been really helpful. And, I know a lot of people don't do that out there, but I have just found it's such an advantage, and it's helps me with my life. And since I'm not in the business of hurting myself anymore, and I'm in business for change and improving my life in every way, because I have such a deep respect for my life today. It's not self-defeating. I am into winning for me and for my life. And when I don't throw myself under the bus, and when I act in ways that are self-loving, and I'm helping myself and getting that help, then I am living on that path of, I can't be a part of the destruction anymore. so I have to do the things that minimize that destruction and help me get through it. And with all those trials and tribulations in my life that arise, and there's a lot of them, I take all of those problems and I turn them into assets, and it's like I'm just gathering all day long. And instead of being super freaked out by a situation and feeling, overwhelmed, I'm dealing with the situation, and then I'm gaining from that. So now all of these problems that are happening in my life and these frustrations are actually all opportunities to gain something. So it shows up as wrong and a problem, but it's actually a gain. And that just keeps building on top of build. And that directly impacts me, and then the ripple effect, it impacts my family in a good way. I only become a better person by continuing to turn this over. And my sponsor reminds me to lean on my higher power, and I need reminders all day, like I am in conscious contact with my higher power, and I'm in contact with people in the rooms. I'm in contact with my sponsor, and with myself, listening to myself, and that was a huge thing that I didn't do before either. Was not listen to myself. I didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't know what my feelings were doing, and I took this 4-day workshop, this healing course on emotions, and I thought because I was sober and in recovery that I was emotionally available. And in this 4-day course, I realized that I actually wasn't as emotionally available as I thought I was. And when I took that course, I really started to develop that relationship with myself and figuring out what my inner compass was doing and honoring that space. So first I had to create the space, and then I had to listen to what was going on with that space. And then I had to act on that space. So the action. So it's the listening, the time, and then the action without the expectation. And that's been a huge, that's been a huge change. I always say that, but I would just bulldoze over that. I would go straight to solution, straight to distraction, straight to I'm fine, who cares, indifference, you name it. And there was no space for the emotion part. And so today when things happen, the first thing I do is check with myself. How am I feeling? And I've heard that my entire life through all the therapy and stuff, but I don't think I actually started practicing that until the last few years. And so when something's happening, I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, this person that I know comes to my house with their big truck, and they just park very obnoxiously, and they don't really look around, and there's lots of kids, and it's a loud big truck, and whoops, I'm back. It's a loud big truck, and I was getting very upset every time this truck would just come onto the property wherever they wanted, park on an angle, take up the whole space, and it bothered me. And leaving it running early in the morning, and I felt triggered, that I was feeling unsafe, because I was also worried about other children. I was worried about that we were being disrespectful to the neighbors, and I thought it felt too close to my home. And so I have now set up a boundary where I've asked this person to just park on the street, which is probably, it's not that far. I'd say, 50 steps. And because I needed that space between us and that vehicle. And it's my home, it's my area. I just, it's my right to have that. And if I need it for me, I need it for me. And I don't need his approval for that. And I used to think I needed him to be okay with it. So I would constantly put this effort into trying to convince them that they should do this. But they're always going to come back and try to convince me with why they should come right to the front door with their big truck, and to my front door with their big truck. And so, I've learned to listen to what my need is and then voice my need. And then I have to continue to reinforce my need. And it took probably a month for this person to start consistently staying on the street instead of coming with their truck right up to the front door. And I needed that space, and I had to make that decision for myself without needing his approval and his yes and his okay. And he didn't like it, and he reacted and he complained, and he told people that, he complained to people about my decision or my request. And I just let that all go. Like I let him get upset, and he's allowed, and it doesn't affect me I can't control people, places, and things. So I just let it all go. Him and what he thinks of that situation. But today, because that truck sits on the street when they arrive, I feel more protected for me because of that space. And I can go to the truck, which I prefer. And, I think I used to live in my life where I would just let those situations just happen, and I wouldn't do anything about it. I would just suffer in silence. And today I stick up for myself in those moments, no matter how small or big they are. But I got to keep sticking up for those things and keep holding that boundary and that line. And I would just get mad at him for doing that without voicing anything. And I don't think that's fair today. And, it's not fair to get upset about something, not say anything about it, and then be like, I can't believe they did that, and I used to live that way. And so now, anytime I feel a trigger, a signal, or something, I need something to change to be okay. Whenever I feel that, I listen to that, and then I figure out a few options of how to deal with that and how to act on that. And all of these little things that I do in my life and day change and improve my life. Some big things I've changed and done, but managing these little struggles and awarenesses and signals that are happening within me and listening to those emotions, that's my starting point. And it's imperative that I know what's going on with my feelings first, and let that feeling happen and let it go through me, and then move on to an action step. And sometimes sometimes I'm stuck in those feelings for a long time, maybe even all day. And when it goes probably longer than the day, then I know it's a deeper issue, probably something from childhood. And then my sponsors told me too, is that it's something from childhood, and that person just reminding me of that. And it then now becomes not about that person at all. So some stuff is about that person, the smaller stuff, but when I'm in my emotion longer, then say longer than 6 hours for me, then it's a deeper issue. And I have to do my part and let that person off the hook. Not say that it's okay or have this big talk with them, but just in my own head, let them off the hook, because it's actually a deep-rooted issue going on with me. So sponsorship has helped me develop this relationship within myself that I didn't have before, and helped me learn how to listen to myself and make space and time. And now it is just a practice and a habit that I do in my life. And you know, my recovery journey, people have helped me so much in my recovery journey. And to me, I just feel like I had to really be walked out of my old life. And I needed a circle. I needed many circles of people to help me with that walk. I just couldn't get out on my own. And I tried that before I got to a room, but I've had to be let out of things by hand, and sometimes even situations in my life at any chance. If I can't get myself out, I get on the phone, I talk to my sponsor, and that's, there's no way I could have undone some of the things in my brain without that kind of help. And there's no one to blame. It's just, I'm middle-aged and I'm fixing myself, and I'm fixing my life and my brain. And it's okay that I maybe wasn't awake before, but I'm really enjoying being awake now. And life is a lot brighter and happier and freer. And I have so much more self-control and power and awareness. And the greatest power of all is having power over me. And I never had that power before. And that strength. And yeah, sponsorship is just really one of those things that has done all of those quiet undoings in my brain. And it's given me a healthy recovery brain. Thank you.